So we'll learn again the Gadete Gemurah from Talmei HaMelech. Fine. So the Gemurah, the Tanya, Mishemasa, the Talmei HaMelech. The Tanya, what's the story? What's the story of Talmei HaMelech? We're there, Dad Zeitman, that they translate the Torah into Yavunas. Maas v'Talmei HaMelech shekinas shivim ishnayim zekeinu v'chnisam b'shivim ishnayim butim. Here exactly, they took 72, this king took 72, this non-Jewish king took 72 Zakeinim, elders of Kal Yisrael, and he put them in 72 separate houses. So they couldn't have access and speak to each other. Like, Gilu lehem al ma kinsan, he didn't tell them why they are there. So they didn't know what the purpose, why he collected them. And he went to each and every one of them and he told them individually, Kizvili Teiris Moshe Rabchem. Write down, he wanted to know what's going on at the Torah. Until that, there was no art school, there was no access. He wanted to know what's going on. Hashem put in each and every one of them the same ideas into their mind, into their hearts. And they all had the same, they came to the same conclusion, to the same decision. And they made the same changes in translating the Torah because of Eloi. And for example, they were writing it into Greek. So they wrote Elikim Bora Bereshis. Right, in the Torah it says Bereshis Bora Elikim, but that could have sounded like there was an entity called Bereshis that created the world. Bereshis Bora Elikim. And then he would ask, oh, somebody created God, Chaz v'shulim. So Megila they switched it. Elikim Bora Bereshis. God created in the beginning. It's different than what we actually have it. This way they were trying to avoid getting into sticky situations with this non-Jewish king. Then it says, Esa Adam B'Tselem V'Dmis. So this is also a change. It says by us in the Torah, it says, Nasa Udam B'Tzelmeini. Let us make man in the image of angels and of Hashem. And instead of doing that, they switched it that Hashem is saying just to himself, I will make man like my image. Not that he was consulting and telling the Malachim, as if, then it would sound like the Eibishter has to consult with Malachim. So then he would attack. He would look for any attack that he could find. So we could say, then it says, Veichal bayoim hashvi hashishi vayishbuz beim hashvi. It says the Eibishter finished on, they switched it to that Hashem finished bayoim hashishi vayishbuz bayoim hashvi. Instead of what we have by us, is that Veichal alikim bayoim hashvi. Veichal bayoim hashvi is mashma, that Hashem was working into Shabbos. Hey, he's worked on Shabbos. And we know that it means that he was done the work on Shabbos. He really was finished on Friday already. But again, they were trying to avoid, but the godless over here is that all 72 of them came to the same conclusions of making the same switches. Because if one of them wouldn't have done it, imagine the king sees 20 make the change, 52 do not. He would be like, some of you are lying to me. They all made the same switches in order to avoid problems. Then it says Zochar and Akeva Baru. It says Veloiksim Barum. It says that Hashem created them. It says in singular, a male and female human being and all creatures. And the lashon by us is Barum. He created, which Barum, the original, that is a lashon that. Right, okay, so actually no. So what it would have been, we know that a male and a female, they were originally created as one. That's what the Medrash tells us, and then they were split. So if it says Baram, it would be mashma that it was two separate entities. We know that originally men and women were one. Male and female, Adam and Chava were one. Then they were separated. What the danger of that is, you have to look in the Mefarshim. What's wrong with them? But again, it wouldn't have stimmed with Chazal. Then it says, Hava erde ve'evla shams v'soy. So this is by the Dora Floga. After they built the tower, Hashem came and swapped out their languages. And he said, Hashem said, come, I will go down and I will mix up their languages, right? That was their punishment. They were building a tower to fight Hashem. Hashem said, this is what happens when human beings get together. I'm going to confuse their language so that they're not all on the same page. So here also, it's more simple that our pasuk actually says, Hava, let us go. And it says, Nerda, let us go down. And then it would be, there's more than one. Hashem was sharing the creation and the different things in the beginning with others, and that would make him question. So they switched it to Hava Erda ve'Evla, like Hashem says by himself, I will go down, Ich vel arub gain, and I will discombobulate their languages. Then it says, Vatischak Sora b'Kraveya. So Kraveya would mean with her relatives. What it actually says by us, and it's an interesting thing by us, it says Vatischak Sora b'Kirba. She actually laughed internally when she heard she's going to have a baby at almost 100 years old. She actually laughed, and she got flack for it. Hashem was not happy with her, but they didn't want. Hey, he's going to say, look, your grandmother Sarah was laughing at Hashem. So they switched it to Vatischak Sarah b'Kraveya, that she was rejoicing with her relatives, like she was actually happy with her relatives. Then it says Kiba Apam Hargi Shor V'Tzaynam Ikri Avos. So really, what it says by us is Kiba Apam Hargi Ish, that they that they actually killed. It's referring to that Shimon and Levi. It says Kiba Apam Hargi Ish V'Tzaynam Ikri Shor, that they killed Yosef because they were going to kill him. They sold him as a slave, so they wanted to kill him. So he would have attacked them. Which, if we know the Sareri Gemalchis were actually killed, we read about it on Yom Kippur and on Tisha B'Av, and it was actually the king was trying to punish them, so to speak, for the fact of Mechiras Yosef, that they sold Yosef. So B'Kitzur, in order to avoid that, they didn't make mention that Shimon and Levi killed a person. They switched it to Ki V'Hapam Argi Shar U'Ritzoynam Ikri Aivas. Fine. V'Yikach Moshe es Ishtoi V'Zbana V'Yarkivam Al Noise B'nei Adam. So this is interesting. Is the lashon by us is a chamor, because otherwise it would have looked bad that Moshe Rabbeinu, who was the gadol of the leader of the Jewish people, that he didn't have a horse or something more chushav to ride on than a donkey. The pusik it actually says ala chamor. So they switched it vayarkivam al noise b'nei adam. He put his kids on creatures that carry people, the carriers of men. So this way, it's not clear that it was a donkey, which is apparently the cheap riding animal. He said that the Klal Yisrael was in the Midbar for 400 years. Right, because what it says by us is that they were there, and the pusik is Moshe ben Yisrael Yashvi Mitzrayim Shloishim Shona va'arba meis Shona. So he would have said that it's 430 years. That started from when Avraham Avinu had the Brisbane Absurim. So 430 years started much earlier. They were only Mitzrayim for 210 years, and we have different ways of knowing that to be the fact, based upon when Kahas was born and all that. The Kitzur, so they switched. They wrote that instead of what it says by us, which he would have interpreted to be 430 years in Mitzrayim, they switched it to 400 years flat. Again, sometimes when you're dealing with somebody and you're dealing with a kid, you just give him easy math. You don't want to make it too complicated. But they all made the same switches. That's the incredible thing over there. Like Yishlach as Zatite b'nai Yisrael, he sent the Zatite b'nai Yisrael, and it says, Zatite b'nai Yisrael l'sholach yodai. So this was a switch from what we have, which is Narei, which Narei again would have sounded like they were sending them to do a choshev avodah. So what if Narei he would have made fun of? Narei is like, oh, you're sending kids for such an important chushev azacha, bring you kabun and messenger. So Mamela, they switched it to a higher level. Again, they were trying to give him reasons. They were trying to take away any reasons from him of making fun of the Torah. We spoke of the Yom Israel for this Yom Tefillah that they had a few days ago. So I mentioned the Mendel Bailas trial. Mendel Bailas was considered the last blood libel that Klal Yisrael had. There was a Russian Jew that was accused of murdering an 8-year-old girl, and really it turns out, and it was pretty clear at the time, the judges and the jury, they knew already that it was really a local woman who was a criminal. She was the head of like a mafia type of thing, and this girl had discovered the place where they were hiding their stolen stuff, so they killed her. But then they made a whole blood libel, and Mamish, this was not too long ago, this was Mamish in the end of the 1800s, and Meir Shapiro was around and others, and he, maybe even later, once it was in 1910 I think. Anyways, bottom line is that is that they said they mamish was still saying that he was going to drink the blood and all that. So what happened was that it became a trial that all of Klal Yisrael was involved, and they put the whole Talmud on the they put the whole Talmud on the court case. Let me see. I just want to get the date. He was alive until 1934. I think it was in the 1913. So it was Mamash now. Mamash just 100 years ago, in the 1900s. The Kitzur, the point was that Mamash, because why did I mention this? Because it's a Moyer de Gevart. We should hear it for the camera. One of the things they asked, Shimshi, ever heard this? Kens this? Is that it says, Atam Kriyam Adam, you're called Adam, Ve'enik Mesa'ilem Kriyam Adam. And the Goyim are not called Adam. So the question is, hey, look, the Talmud seems to say that we're subhuman, we're not human beings. So Meir Shapiro sent a beautiful message to the chief rabbi of the area that was involved with the trial. He told him to give the following answer. He said, Udam is the only word in the Torah that only exists in singular. You have Ish, Anushim, or even Ishim. Any word could turn into Yuchid. He says there's no plural for the word Udam. Udam Amensh. There's no Adomim. There's no Lushan Rabbah. So he said, what does that mean? He says that Yidin, it means, Atam Kri Uda means that whenever look at a trial like this, he says if a guy would be on trial, a Chinese, the other Chinese would not want to go down with him. They would disassociate. We have no shaykhs. We don't know this guy. Here, the whole Jewish world was in an uproar, sending money, sending representatives, and defense lawyers. So he said that's what it means. And the judge loved the answer. He was makabelit. Atma Kriyam Udam is that we have this element of Udam, that we're one. The Goyim don't care about themselves in this kind of way. For them, it's a bunch of separate people. Yeah, fine. So then it says, let's finish up this. I got it over here. It says, I never took anything of a desired object from you. So the real illusion is Moshe Rabbeinu, at the end of his life, told the Yidden, I never took one donkey. But again, he would say, oh, he didn't take a donkey, but he took other things. Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, I never took any payment from Klal Yisrael for all of my service. He was dedicated for over 80 years, working for Klal Yisrael and saving their life. Mamash, when Hashem was ready to wipe them out after Kairach, after the Egel, so many times he stepped in. Mamash, he put himself in danger, and he says, I never took even one. So the pusik that Moshe Rabbeinu said is loy chamar. I never even took a donkey, but he would say, oh, I didn't take a donkey, but other things, yeah. So Mamayla, the El switched it that I didn't take chemed, any desired thing. So it says that Hashem has given them a light to all the nations. Fine. So it's mashma. He could have thought, the way we have it is that they could have thought that all the goyim, the Avodah Zarah, are allowed to serve Avodah Zarah to all the suns, to the moon and the stars. So they switched it. What it actually says by house is they could have thought they're actually allowed to bow down to the sun and the moon. They went to serve others that I did not instruct them. Also, this is another interesting. His wife's name was Arnevis, rabbit. And one of the treifa animals that are not kosher in Parsha Shmini is Arnevis. So they all switched from the word Arnevis to the one that has short legs. They just switched the word Arnevis to Estzeiris Reglayim, so that he wouldn't take it personal. You're saying my wife is a non-kosher sounding creature. Her name was Arnevis. It was probably in a different language, but it still sounded the same. He says, so they wouldn't say that the Jews are making fun of me and they put my wife's name in the Torah as a non-kosher creature.